Today on the channel, we're finishing off our look at the Squadron Supreme on Where I Got It Figured.
The way I got it figured.
What's up, figure fans? Where I Got It Figured, back with another Marvel Legends review. This time we're looking at the final, even though it was released first, the final 2-pack for the Squadron Supreme of America. I wanted to get them after I got Power Girl. I wanted to get them after I got Power Princess. So I picked these guys up at Hasbro Pulse. I found Nighthawk and Blur in GameStop, so I went ahead and grabbed them. They'll be linked in the pinned comment below. Check that video out when you can. We're going to get these guys out as quickly as we can, go over the packaging as quickly as we can, because I am eager to get the Squadron Supreme of America together. So let's start with the packaging. First off, we've got Hyperion and Dr. Spectrum posed out, looking ready to do some damage. On the side, you got Hyperion, Dr. Spectrum, and then you got the Ed McGuinness artwork, which I believe was like promo artwork for the Heroes Reborn series that came out a few years ago. Then on the back, you've got Hyperion and Dr. Spectrum. Dr. Spectrum comes with quite a few pieces. Comes with his power prism. And Hyperion comes with alternate non-fisted hands. Got your Squadron Supreme on the top. Legalese crap on the bottom. Plastic-free packaging. We'll soon not have any more. And that's a look at the packaging. Let's get these guys out and see what we can see. Alright, so we freed Dr. Spectrum and Hyperion from their cardboard and paper prisons. We got their accessories out with them. And there's a couple of notes on the figures, of course, that needs to be gone over. So they made these guys partially off of old body molds. Dr. Spectrum being on the Bucky Cat mold, which is somewhat long in the tooth. And but they gave them new parts too. So Hyperion obviously has a new head. They've made Hyperion in the past. I think he's on the same body as Gladiator. But he has, in addition to a head, pinless legs, but pinned arms. And Dr. Spectrum has pinless arms, but pinned legs. So, you know, there was sort of a outcry, especially about Dr. Spectrum, about how, you know, quote unquote bad he was and everything like that. He is on an old body mold. I'm going to have to put him in some water because he's sort of leaning. You can't really probably tell from the camera, but he is leaning forward because his ankles are like really tight. But that's, you know, from being trapped in the packaging the way he was. But, you know, I'm going to have to give him a hot water bath. But, you know, I can kind of go with the idea that some people, you know, was like, oh, he just looks so cheap. And in a way, he kind of does. But I really think it's because of the weird color of green. You know, he does look kind of cheap, but the character looks kind of cheap is what I guess is what I'm getting at. Like, you know, Dr. Spectrum, that's just the way he looks. So, as I pointed out, these guys are from the Heroes Reborn storyline where Bill Colson becomes president of the United States by making a deal with Mephisto, and Mephisto, rewrites reality so that the Squadron Supreme of America, like the premier heroes and the Avengers, never formed. But Blade remembered the world as it was and went around and assembled the Avengers. And they eventually took took the world back, reset reality, all that kind of stuff. But there are many uh, variations and universal counterparts of the Squadron Supreme. In fact, with Hyperion here, not too long ago, Hyperion was a member of the Avengers, and he had a solo book for a minute. In that, Hyperion was the only survivor of his entire universe. He had black on; it was like a black Hyperion outfit, black and yellow rather than red and yellow. And I'm not even sure what happened to that Hyperion, so I'm gonna have to do some digging. But there are multiple realities where the Squadron Supreme have appeared from. The main Squadron Supreme, I guess I would say, was actually trapped on Earth for a number of years, living in Project Pegasus, until the Avengers had to help them go back to their universe. But yeah, so there's a lot to unpack with the Squadron Supreme. But I wanted them because they're essentially Avengers foes, sometimes allies. They are every bit Avengers characters, so I wanted them, so we got them, and I'm happy to say that. So looking at Doctor Spectrum once more, like I said, he's on an old body mode. You can see he's got the old ab set up, um, fairly decent T pose, and I mean, he'd be not for the legs being the way they were in the box. He'd probably be pretty decent, but it's a well worn body. We're not going to sugarcoat that. I thought he had fisted hands, but he doesn't. That's what it looked like from the box, but they're not. They're not actually fisted. I do want to change one out so that we can give him his power prism. Since we can't make it float, like it kind of floats around on its own, um, rather than him holding it, even though sometimes he does hold it. And it basically gives him powers similar to, Green Lantern. He's the Green Lantern of the Earthstats Justice League. He's got some pretty nice power effects. I think those are kind of cool. You can use them for him. You can probably even use them for other guys and it won't look weird. And then, of course, you got the big guy, Hyperion. And, he's super muscular, super large dude. Portrait is really nice. Probably more used to Hyperion not having a mask, but this version indeed does have a mask, so he's supposed to have it. But I certainly wouldn't mind getting a Hyperion head that doesn't have the mask, so that you could use them for other versions of Hyperion. Now the original Hyperion, the actual first Hyperion that ever showed up, had the mask because he was part of the Squadron Sinister that was created by the Grandmaster to fight the Avengers. And of course, basically all he did was copy them off of the Squadron Supreme of another universe to battle the Avengers, which they did, quite a few times. The Spider-Man villain, the Wizard, was actually the Earthstat's copy of Wizard from that universe. Before they started calling him Blur, which comes from the Supreme Power, basically the ultimate universe version of the Squadron Supreme. They called him Blur, and now this guy, the guys that go with these guys, he's called himself Blur too. So Stanley Stewart. There you go. There's that. That's your comic book lesson to go along with these guys. And they're decent figures, of course. Well-worn figures. But the main draw of getting them, of course, is to have them with the Squadron Supreme, the other members. And by having them all together, that's kind of the point. So you've got your 2 packs together. But you wouldn't be complete without second most powerful member, Zarda, Power Princess. Who is an impressive Legends figure. And I like this version of the Squadron Supreme. Like, they're good guys, but there's sort of a sinister edge to them. They were really just trying to be heroes, but they had, different flaws. Like Power Princess is not very like a necessarily a great person. Dr. Spectrum is like a human supremacist in a sense. Goes around in space handling space threats so that humans can go to space later. Hyperion is like a twisted sort of patriotic hero. Stanley Stewart, Blur, is kind of he's a wisecracking villain, shade off of Wizard, but he's not really evil. I don't know if I read that in the story. I mean, I'd probably say the only one that's really evil is kind of Power Princess, which is a takeoff actually of her Supreme Power version. And then Nighthawk, who is, also a good guy, but he does make sort of like questionable moral decisions to have his his war on crime. But yeah, there you go. Squadron Supreme assembled together. So I'm not going to belabor the point. I'm going to move on to final thoughts. Final thoughts on the Squadron Supreme, Hyperion, and Dr. Spectrum 2-pack. So, I think the complaints are, I guess, well founded on this one. They're not bad figures in my opinion, but using a really old Dr. Spectrum, a body for Dr. Spectrum that's kind of old and worn out, and then making them both like sort of half pinless, it kind of makes it seem like, especially after already doing Blur and Nighthawk, that they put more money into Blur and Nighthawk than they did into Hyperion and Dr. Spectrum. And that's okay. I get it. There's reasons for that. But I just think that, a better body mold for Doc Spec would have probably helped this set overall. I honestly don't think you had to do anything to Hyperion. It's okay. I don't really mind the pinned arms. I'm not even sure if there's a body at this size that doesn't have pinned arms. I really have to think about that. So, it's okay. He does have pinless legs, which means that they could have, if they gave him pinless legs, he probably could have had pinless arms. But it finishes the set. If you got these guys first, then essentially it's only, it's only going up from there. Since I got them last, it's sort of like anticlimactic a little bit in the sense of the, I don't want to say quality, but they could have just picked better body mold for Dr. Spectrum. He's not as terrible as all of that, because again, this is how the character looks. He has that weird green in the comic books. It's kind of a weird, kind of crappy green, and he looks like a crappy character. He always did. So there's nothing mysterious about that. As a set together, way I got a figure rank, I really can't give them more than an 8. They're decent. There's some nice new things with them, like Hyperion's awesome portrait and everything like that. And he's certainly, he's certainly the winner out of these two. But I do think that the winner of the packs is definitely Nighthawk and Blur. And the winner of the entire Squadron Supreme period is definitely Power Princess. She is all of it. So having her with her team, she's definitely the headliner. But again, the Avengers connection runs super deep with these guys, and so I had to have them. So that's it for this one. Thanks for all the subscribers, the subscriptions, people who keep coming back and watching videos. And I'd love for people who don't, subscribe to join up. I've got, plenty of content coming, and we want to do the best by everybody. Until the next video, I'm gonna wish everybody, safety, health. Glad you could stop by the channel. You could have watched anybody's video in the world, but you watched mine. So I do thank you for that. Till next time, everybody stay safe. Peace.
The way I got it figured.